You know how?
It's the angle of the rain.
The temperature of the rain.
I almost had it.
So we're going to keep all that.
Probably not.
Okay. Even my joke. What?
Yeah, we'll have the joke.
Okay.
People will, right.
People will roll their eyes and say, God,
Yeah,
an
okay.
American.
God damn an American.
Ah!
God damn
Yeah,
it.
well, I hate... No, I can't say, I can't say that.
Right.
You're going to get me in so much trouble one of these days.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you're going to air it.
Okay, Cara.
I'm going to have to kill you. Yes. Hi, Miles. Hi.
Faye.
Yeah, but let's not start there. Okay, Fae do come into everything, and I know you're very interested in that, and you should be very interested in that.
I'd like to know how to spell it right first.
I spell it P-H-E to begin with.
Okay.
And the reason is because it comes, okay, you're going to get me launched into this,
Yeah,
but I'm going to then park that and come back to it later, because it's huge. The reason I spell it P-H-E is because that planet is actually locatable. It's one of those open secrets again. You just have to know where to get the information. The information is not in the has not been in the English-speaking world particularly, and that is because we live in a bubble, especially America. And I know this from trying to just get my simple books out, you know.
Your books aren't simple; they're pretty damn complex.
Well, they are, but just trying to get my message out. I've had to leave America. I've had to leave the United States, and come to London, and from London.
Do you owe the IRS a lot of money?
No, no, and I'm not in the witness protection program either.
All right. And if you were, you wouldn't tell us.
Yeah, and now anyway. So, but coming to London. Since London is the center of one of the webs, if not, it is the center of one of the three webs. It's the financial center of the, everything that goes out from there. It's an open pipeline,
There's also massive energy stuff.
Yes,
Your
and
former collaborator mentioned that.
Yeah, and I'm riding the crest of this information wave. They can't stop me because, do you know what I mean? They can't stop any of us who are riding that wave because they've got to keep the pipelines open for their own business. So that's how my information finally started to go out. When I left the United States, which is under information lockdown, absolutely lockdown, and come to London and try to get it out, get it in through the back door. But this goes to your question, which I'm going to talk about at length now and at the International Conference. And in Melbourne, I'm going to be rolling out this series of lectures at the end of May. The reality is there's a planet, and it's called Phecda, P-H-E-C-D-A, and it is the bottom left-hand corner of the Great Dipper, which is not actually...
We call it the plough.
Okay, it's not actually, my understanding is not actually technically part of Ursa Major. It's in front of Ursa Major a bit.
Yeah, it's like a lot of star constellations in 3D,
Right.
They're completely different shape.
Right, and I have sent you some visuals if you want to put them in later, and I hope you do at least this one, because if you know that the plow, here I guess we call it the Big Dipper.
The Big Dipper in the United States.
In the United States, revolves seasonally because it's a polar star. It's a
polar constellation.
It circumnavigates the pole, and it revolves around Polaris, as it would in the northern hemisphere. And as it revolves in the seasons, it forms a swastika as it goes around. Now,
we've got to get the Nazis in here somehow.
I ask you, do you find that everywhere in this planet? In the most ancient cultures, as we know?
Well, there is in Yorkshire. Nina Valentine would talk about that. There was a swastika in the Yorkshire moors and the stones up there.
They're everywhere. They're in the Zuni cultures, which is where I come from. They're Buddhist. They're as ancient can be. They're everywhere. It's like
of course, he had
a post-it note left by the Fae all over this planet, or at least all over the northern hemisphere. Someone will say, someone pointed out to me the other day that in the southern hemisphere you have the Southern Cross. I don't know tons about that, but I do know that I've always been sort of focused, drawn to that idea of the Southern Cross. I don't know why yet. It doesn't even matter right now. The only thing that really matters right now is that this planet exists. The story is out there that is where the Fae come from. And we will be talking about that later. There's a couple things I want to do though first that are business And one of them is, as I was just saying to you, I've been telling people since last October that there is a follow-up to Dangerous Imagination, Silent Assimilation. And there is. It's called The Workbook. And when I get done with the thing, it's probably going to be about 500 pages long.
Now, okay, very briefly, you're no longer, your previous collaborator, you're no longer working together.
With...
Can people still get that book, Dangerous Imaginations, which is co-authored with Harold?
Yeah, they can, because he can't really do anything about that.
Yeah, but there was talk that Amazon wouldn't sell it or something.
Oh, no, Amazon sells it.
Okay,
yeah,
fine.
Absolutely, it's still for sale. It's still a crackerjack book. And always will be for sale, because he can't really do anything about that.
But it's not rocket science. Collaborative partnerships, come and go, fall apart, whatever reason. But the book stands on its own. So let's just... It
stands on its own. And that actually brings me to my next point, which is that the second edition, actually I'm going to rephrase that. What I've done since I'm no longer associated with Harold Kautzvella, and don't expect to be in the future, I've taken Dangerous Imagination, and I intend to make a trilogy out of it called The Imagination Chronicles. So this is volume 1. It's out there. It's been out there for a while now. And I've been working on the second installment of this trilogy, which is the workbook. Duncan Rhodes, who you may know from
him,
Nexus
I don't know,
magazine, from Nexus,
yeah.
Talked to me when
Duncan being based in Australia. But the magazine itself has many different versions and editorial.
Global,
it's global with different editorships.
He had read Dangerous Imagination, and he said to me that he thought it was a good candidate for serialization. But since the whole point of the whole book was for those two pieces to go out together, that just didn't make any sense to me.
You had to separate.
However, I am serializing the second part, and the reason is because each bit is 50, 60 pages long, and each bit stands alone. And so it could take me a good year to get the whole thing out. I am, by the time you air this, Miles, which I suppose will be fairly soon.
It's already aired. I work so fast, it's happened already.
I'm on right now. How am I doing?
Yeah, you're doing. I think we're 25,000 hits.
But by the time this airs,
you're being honoured with about 150,000 trolls.
Yes, no matter where I go.
Yeah.
No matter where I go, and some of them famous chemtrail activists, but I'm not going there.
Oh my God! Scandal.
I know. Did you say that? Did you say that?
What did you say? What did you say? Repeat that.
It's true.
Repeat that.
Anyway, yeah. So I'm serializing the second part. The people who have actually pre-ordered the book, and there are some who have done that, are getting a deal and a half, because by the time I get done with this, it's going to be 300, 400, 500 pages. 500 pages long, I bet, because I'm doing 7 or 8 portions. I'm calling them episodes. Now, I realize that the television industry stole that word from the literary industry, but I'm bringing it back. I'm taking it back. And so I'm calling them episodes. Episode 1 is called The False History, or The Great Remembering, and it will be available by the time this airs. Okay? There's short bits. This one I think is 50 or 60 pages long. I've just finished it. And the challenge for me today, Miles, is to talk to you about this, what I'm putting out right now. That is actually the first half of the lecture series I'm preparing, which I will roll out in Melbourne, Australia on 31st of May of this year.
Which is 2016 for the point of view of the recording.
Yes, 2016, and then I'll be moving on, I think, to Byron Bay. I'm either going to do 2 or 3 lectures in a week, flying from here to Australia, do 2 or 3 lectures and fly back. So, but you know what? Can I just say that it's been harder to get into Australia than it is to get into the United States? It's even worse trying to get...
What's happening?
Information lockdown, my friend. Information lockdown. There are very few people who are doing the kind of work that you're doing right now. Danny Arnold McKinney, I think is her name. Lisa M. Harrison is doing some work. Other than that, well, there's Duncan. But you know, Duncan's global. Duncan is kind of everywhere. He's not really what you might consider an Australian entity.
He's very highly respected, but
I think
Nexus is actually now, you have to be listed to sell it.
Maybe, I don't know.
In the shops.
I'm hoping to connect with him personally when I'm down there. Anyway, it's taken me 4 years to get a hearing in Australia. So if I have to go down there and do a different city every day, that is what I will do, because we're making hay while the sun shines, you know, while we're down there. Anyway, so I'm going to roll out this lecture series. It's going to have its debut there on the 31st of May. And then I will bring a rather refined version and probably an enlarged version, because this information is just nonstop, to the International Conference in August. And that will make me very happy to be able to bring it there. So,
well, it's going to be strong on ladies, strong on the feminine.
Good. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We'll take it. Right. And I'm excited about it.
That's BasisCon 2016.
Yeah, I didn't get to come last year. I had family things that kept me in the United States.
I used to call it the International Film Festival and Conference. And by the time we did that, people had died.
They're like,
so
wait,
it's BasisCon 2016, and then that's got the film festival as arts and other things like that.
Okay, so the challenge for me today, and I always bring you these challenges because for me, this is just a great conversation, is that this 50 pages that I'm telling you about is a summarization of my research, which encompasses about 2,000 pages of written work and 42 or so videos. And I've tried to bring it into about 50 pages. And this is actually what I do. This is what I do. I bring, and because it's the workbook, it really is what it says it is. I'm trying to summarize the major points and give people a path. If you want to know more, if you want to dig deeper, this is where you go. That means that some of it is original research, not very much of it. Most of it is just me bringing people to the public who deserve to be in the public, okay? Whose work may well get buried if the powers that be have anything to say about it. And it cannot happen that way. It cannot happen that way right now. It's too important. One of them, the first part of this is about the false chronology that we're operating under. And most people don't have any relationship to this idea that there's such a thing as a chronology. What does that mean? Well, it's the history. It's the history that we're living under. It's the history that we're taught. It's our frame of reference in the world, really. This thing happened at this time, this thing happened at this time, and relative to this, this, and this, we can prove that this, happened here, and so forth. So it's really quite important. And there's something called the consensual chronology. It just means that it's the modern chronology that we've all agreed to go by. And it was put out by a fellow called Scaliger. And Scaliger lived in the 16th century. See, this is the thing about 2,000 pages worth of research. Forgive me if I'm off a little bit, but...
Oh, God.
I know. Someone out there will remind me, I'm sure. Scaliger lived, I believe, in the 15th or 16th century. 16th century. Yeah, in France. He was French. And he put together what we would consider to be the chronology that we go by now. You will often hear people quoting Josephus. Josephus has said this. Josephus has said that. All right, but in point of fact, several of the greatest minds in Western civilization have known for sure that it's wrong, starting with Isaac Newton, starting with Johannes Kepler. These people have said, and I know Isaac Newton has his issues, believe me, I know that, but he was also a master chronologer, and right before he died, he put out some information about how this chronology was an absolute fabrication.
We talking about basically an extra 1,000 years in here?
It ranges from an extra 300 years at some points to an extra 1,200 years at other points. There's phantom time that's been inserted in this chronology. So, in point of fact, it's really not 2016. At the very least, it's 1016 if you're going to go by the time, if you're going to go by years. And you can't even say that because there's really no zero. It's really,
well, the
really
so-called
complex.
Zero is the so-called birth of Christ.
Exactly.
Which is an invention of, or a rehash of...
Well, Osiris and all of those things, yes. But if in fact Jesus the Christ was a person and was born and did have some sort of incarnation on this planet...
We're talking about the narrative as in what we're told in so-called Christianity based on the Emperor Flavius.
It would have been about 1185. He's a medieval character at best. And this is, okay, so let me, before I try to start getting into all these details, because like I said, this is 2,000 pages worth of proof, okay? There's a fellow in Russia, an outstanding, a top mathematician and astronomer in Moscow, who has proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that the chronology is false. His name is Fomenko, Anatoly Fomenko, Fomenko. And he's put out a series of books. There's 7 of them altogether. I've only taken my work from the first 4, which is 2,000 pages long. Okay? The thing about history is, and this goes several places, the thing about history and the thing about how we date events is that it's done astronomically. The most reliable way that we have, you know this, you're an astronomer, the most reliable way that we have to date anything is by predictable placements of the moon or the comets that go by regularly, these kinds of things. This is how we date things. It's the most reliable and the most mathematically sound way to know where we are in space and time, or to order events.
And of course we've got this thing called carbon dating, which is a bit dodgy.
Carbon dating is absolutely, I mean, it's reliable to plus or minus 1,000, 2,000 years. And all scientists know that. They all know that. It's not, you know, and things that are sent off to be dated usually are tagged with instructions of what they're hoping to find. Yeah. So they go to one lab, usually, with a tag on it. Well, this is this, and we think it's this era. And then you're using a system of carbon decay that's only good to within 1,000 or 2,000 years either way. You can't rely on carbon dating for anything. Carbon dating is...
And that assumes a linear exposure to radiation and
it assumes a lot of things, doesn't it?
It assumes a linear time-space decay.
It assumes a lot of things. Yeah. So what happened is these mathematicians in Russia discovered an anomaly based on some of the historical events that had been placed before us on the chronology. And the anomaly indicated that somehow within the space of 300, 400, 500 years, the moon had sped up, had started doing, you know, double, triple time, because that's the only way it could have worked out in terms of the astronomy going with the history. So this fellow Newton, another fellow called Newton, Robert Newton, who worked for NASA and still is alive, I believe he's still lecturing. I think I may have just seen his name on a panel with Lear and all those people, maybe in Canada. But anyway, this astronomer Newton, who is a top dog at NASA, decided that, in fact, there was nothing wrong with the chronology, that there was an anomaly with the moon. Well, okay, isn't it more logical to assume that there's something amiss with the calendar, which is a man-made kind of list of items, than that somehow the moon went insane for a few hundred years and then calmed back down? I mean, that doesn't make any sense to anybody.
Well, that would affect tides, all sorts of things, growth.
The guy works for NASA, so he's standing his ground. It's about the moon and it's not about the calendar. Well, Fomenko and another mathematician, Mozarov, which I've sent you pictures of all these people, realized that if you just straightened out the calendar a little bit, the moon's activity just settled right down. But it meant you had to eliminate a lot of years. Yeah, you had to eliminate centuries, actually. Yeah. And what happened in these centuries is all kinds of false, surprise, surprise, all kinds of false dynasties started to appear. All right? So, this is what a lot of us have been saying without astronomical proof, right? Without mathematical proof, which there is now. It's irrefutable, really. The odds of it being wrong in some of the forms that he set up to test what he calls phantom dynasties are 100 billion to 1. Statistically, this man is a genius statistician, and he's got now.
So
hundreds.
Are we saying that we've got kings which didn't exist, or what?
And here's what we've got. We've got, he set up something called a dynasty form, and he put together 35-ish sets of criteria, and he compared dynasty to dynasty. And he got a timeline, he got a graph out of it. He's a statistician. And he found many, 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 many dynasties that were exactly one was the same as the same as the same as the same. It statistically had to be the same dynasty. Whether it was the third Roman Empire being exactly the same as Jerusalem with Jeroboam, which, by the way, they match. Okay?
Right.
You've got Israeli dynasties. Were they Israeli then? I guess they were. Matching Roman dynasties. You know, plot point for plot point for plot point, you know. And Constantine was really this guy in Israel. And if you look at his work and you look at my work, I've tried to just extract a few things of interest so that you can, I'm demonstrating what it is this guy did of interest to us that covers, if you want to, and you should go read his books before they disappear, frankly. I mean, I've got the first 3 volumes and it took me a while to find the 4th one. And then 5, 6, 7, 8, and on so on are now only on Kindle, which for me is a big red flag because you can change Kindle.
Yes.
You know, you don't want that. You want it in print.
Yeah.
If you can get it in print, you want it in print. The guy is still operating. He's got a website of his own. He speaks English. His name is Fomenko, okay? It's an idea to interview the guy. He speaks English. It would have to be, you know, I'm sure it would have to be a Skype interview unless you want to go to Moscow.
Well, I'd like to go to Moscow.
I'd like to go to Moscow too. As a matter of fact, the other person that I'm going to bring in, the woman who did the videos that I like to talk about, you and I have actually talked about interviewing her. I did contact her. She lives in Vienna. She does not want, very much like some of the other people that you interview, she doesn't really want a public persona. She's very much out there. She's very much accessible. She just does research, I mean, video after video after video that's absolutely terrific. She's actually how I first started thinking about this because she put out a series of videos. The guy's name is Gary Schoening, Schoening, and he has scanned the planet. He scanned the globe and found that it's covered with, among other things, irrigation canals. Have you seen that?
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, a very highly advanced pre-civilization.
Yes, which is much closer to us than we realize, according to Ivanova, which is Sylvia Ivanova is the woman who's doing the New Earth research, which is the woman that I was talking about. She's in Vienna, near Vienna. She's not in Vienna, she's near Vienna. And I had originally thought, oh, come on, Miles, let's go, you know. But Vienna is a lot farther away than you think it is. I always end up thinking it's next door to Frankfurt, but in fact, it's near Prague, and it's near, I mean, it's far. But one of these days, soon, we do need to get out there and interview her. Yeah. If we can. She has said yes if we want to come out there. Anyway, I'm backing up a little bit. Her name is Sylvia Ivanova. Her series is the New Earth series on YouTube. I cannot recommend it highly enough. Some of it, as with everybody else's work, even Fomenko's work, Fomenko says we cannot know anything that happened prior to 900 AD. And so for all he knows, it's stone tools at that point. Okay, well, that's the mathematician talking, right? Well, you know, it's not.
Well, I mean, this is queries. I mean, what about the Romans and the Greeks and all that?
Ah, well, there you go. See, it's right on top of us. That's the thing. Did you know that, within the context of the non-English speaking academic world, the chronology is being very aggressively challenged worldwide, especially in non-English speaking Europe and in Russia, okay? It's absolutely under attack. For example, there is a lot of evidence that Nero, is it Caesar? Nero Caesar?
Yeah.
Nero Caesar.
He fiddled while Rome burned.
Well, he was in direct contact with the Habsburg dukes. That was concurrent. There is all kinds of data to suggest that some of the Habsburg dukes.
Years ago, then?
Well, but listen, there's all kinds of data that's actually assumed by many historians that the dukes of the Habsburg dukes were at gladiator contests. Those things were simultaneous. They happened at the same time. But you see, you get this chronology, you get these years, these centuries inserted. Some of the reason that it's messed up is understandable, and some of it is not. Some of it's done, most of it's done actually absolutely on purpose. Okay, so you have
it's
very surprising things like that
by the Roman Church. I mean, for what?
Oh, essentially, no. It's
to establish it.
You've got to dig to figure out where this is coming from. There are two men who were primarily responsible or headed it up. the standard chronology that we use right now. One of them was styled himself Dionysius Petrovius, Dionysius Petravius, something like that. Petavius. Thank you. Dionysius Petavius. It wasn't his real name. His real name was Denis Petau. He was French, and he was a Jesuit. And then there was Scaliger, Josephus Scaligarius. He ended up calling himself, also a Jesuit. Okay. Supposedly they were one after the other. I think they were probably working together, and they worked together in concert with the Benedictine monks. People will say that Christianity was was a medieval French invention, and there is all kinds of evidence for that. And I will make sure all of this gets presented in my lectures.
Well, this is something that Yuvarov referred to, that the actual Christian was in France. The whole Christian Christ thing happened in France.
The Catholic Church, well, maybe. The Catholic Church has said since the 1300s that the angel Gabriel appeared to Mary in Loreto, Italy. They say that blatantly. In Italy, in Loreto, Italy, it's celebrated every year. His appearance to Mary to say to her, there will be an immaculate conception here, took place in Italy. Okay? We just have no idea. We have absolutely no idea what's really going on. And the Christian church did not exist before 1400 AD. It was manufactured in France by Petavius and Scaligarius, if you want to call him that, Scaliger, and the Benedictine monks with the backing of the Jesuits. Okay.
But what did the Benedictine monks do before that? I mean, what sort of belief system were they?
What did they do? Did they exist before that?
Yeah, but how did, if they were Benedictine monks, you suspect were Christian monks? I mean,
I don't know. Maybe there weren't. Maybe there weren't, Miles. Maybe they were an invention of the Jesuits. Maybe the Jesuits created this cadre of scribes, because that's really what you're talking about here, supposedly.
I mean, this is true pulp fiction, this.
It's real, though. It's been mathematic. This is the thing. It's been proved. This is the thing, and this guy has to be protected. His work has to be protected. It's coming out of Russia. He is, and the hundreds of academics and scholars that are working with him are mathematicians and astronomers of the highest order. They're running universities in Russia. Okay? And the thing, let me tell you something, Miles. This is where the flat earth theory comes. This is where the flat earth theory comes in. The so-called new flat earth theory. It is not part of what I'm trying to bring to you in terms of the false chronology. But I would postulate that if standard spherical astronomy is in fact the best proof that we have that we live in a fake chronology, that the history has been faked for various reasons, then would the powers that be not want to discredit astronomy? Would that not be one of, if not job one, close to job one? I find this flat earth, every lecture that I give, I'm going to have to preface, because I say this and I mean it, I'm going to have to preface every lecture I give with, I'm not here to argue the toss about the flat earth theory, because all that is divisive. It's just, that's all that's about, is dividing
from
everybody.
A personal point of view, when you leave port with two ships and one ship is going further away and the sea you can see it rise up as the ship goes below the sea, only a mile and a half or so away.
Yeah.
You can see the spherical nature of the sea.
Sure. But have you noticed that this argument is rabid? That people get.
Yeah, but if you've only ever looked at the world through an iPhone or an iPad or something.
True. That's flat, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is that not 2D? And also, if we're trying to ascend to 4 or 5, bring us back down to 2.
Yeah.
Flat Earth, yeah.
And it's really. They go and put a GoPro up on something which is a fisheye lens, and then you hit correct. There's a correction program.
Yeah.
You can make the horizon flat everywhere you go.
Yeah. For me, this flat Earth stuff is about discrediting traditional astronomy, because traditional astronomy is how we prove what happened when. And frankly, there was a period in time.
The trouble with traditional astronomy is, as long as it's maintaining the fiction of a moon landing and all that stuff, they are maintaining so many falsehoods. So
but Flamenco isn't. Flamenco doesn't talk about any of that.
Yeah.
He doesn't care about that.
Right. Okay.
He only cares about the very traditional stuff like eclipses and comets and.
But I mean, the gods of science are no longer available for query. They are dogmatic. Science has become a dogma.
Scientism, yeah.
Scientism, yeah. And astronomism, I suppose, is a dogma.
But astronomy, in this sense, is very old.
Yeah.
This is trigonometry.
This is a difference, yeah.
This is strictly trigonometry. This isn't even astrophysics. This isn't even basic astrophysics, you know?
Yeah.
This is just freaking geometry that proves that certain things happened at a certain time, and if you don't maintain that the moon lost its ever-loving mind for about 500 years, then what you have is an insertion of time. And interestingly enough, during these periods of time, all kinds of dynasties started to appear. This is what matters, I think. This is why this propensity for people to mess up our chronology and from one place to another ascribe one event as two events when in fact it was just one event. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we end up stacking up time. I think that this human tendency that we have was taken advantage of by, I would say, the Jesuits, if I had to grab something there.
Yeah, I mean, people didn't have books until quite recently. I mean, even
Maybe, I don't, yeah, okay, till quite recently.
How many people were able to read?
Everything was oral. There's no history you can trust that isn't oral.
Yeah.
There's no history in the world.
If you didn't agree with what the church told you, you got burned at the stake, tortured and butchered as heresy.
Yes, and this is what I was saying to you not too long ago.
Mild incentives there just to say, yeah, I believe it.
Yeah, okay, it's fine. The Inquisition, the Reformation, the Counter-Reformation, all of these things were put into place to force this history down our throats, in my opinion and in other people's research, okay? Like I said, I'm bringing other people's research because I think it's important to bring it. Flamenco's research, Ivanova's research, they're bringing, verification from people like Newton, like Oswald Spengler, like Kepler. Kepler said, Scaliger has seduced me. He wrote those words, Scaliger has seduced me. There is nothing more frightening than studying the chronology. Kepler said that. So there was a period of time, I believe, driven by the Jesuits, who were driven by God knows who. I'm going to end up at some point saying the bad fairies. Okay, I am. But one of the, probably in this show. Do you know the one thing that I left out? Do you remember we talked at length about the Prussian education system? Yeah. And I talked about how that had been driven by Frederick II's defeat by Napoleon at Jena in 1805. All right. Well, there were other things going on there that I did not at the time connect because I didn't have the information yet. And the reality was that there was a pope, I think it was Clement XIII, who disbanded the Jesuits. Just prior to that, when I say just prior, it could have been the prior century. They were mad as hell because they're the Jesuits. If you ever heard their oath, I mean, their oath is incredibly violent, and they're like almost like a reptilian machine in a way.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Well, maybe they are.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. The question is what's actually behind the Jesuits. We'll get there. I know we will. And we'll talk about that. But right now, so Clement XIII disbanded them. And then Napoleon defeated Wilhelm, and we went on from there. And one of the popes ended up in a Napoleonic jail. It was Pius X, I believe. And when he was freed from the Napoleonic jail, 1815-ish, he reorganized the Jesuits with a vengeance. He let them back, and they became, useful again for the Vatican, as opposed to the Vatican being frightened of them. They became, like slavering attack dogs. And then in 1818, the education system was rolled out. For me, those things obviously go together. They very much go together because the Jesuits are known for operating universities and schools globally because they know that that's how you entrap people, and you teach them, you tell them anything that you want them to believe, and when you've got them from the age of 4 or 5 years old, and it only takes 2 or 3 generations to eliminate a memory like that.
Yeah.
Luckily, because of epigenesis and because of the morphogenic field and because of all of these things, we still have this memory. But in essence, there are a dozen points of attack. And the points of attack are on our memory. Remembering, that's why I call this lecture The Great Remembering, because it's about remembering who we are, but it's not what you think it is. I think Sylvia Ivanova is correct when she says that we are much, much closer within just a few centuries to the survivors of the Atlantean culture than we know.
Yeah.
And that, as I said to you in the last few days, we had this conversation. This is part of one long campaign.
And that's Ireland, the so-called
It is Ireland. It begins.
And also the Fae.
The Fae. Those two things go together. Yes.
And the Jinn in Ireland. And
you know more about the Jinn than I do. Well, I will tell you.
Jinn is my understanding of Jinn is merely it's a name given to the ancient civilizations, which was deleted from the so-called Christianity here.
Maybe. I think we may be confusing the Fae and the Jinn a little bit there. I don't think they're the same thing. The Jinn in my the Fae are here.
Now
I self-identify, as you know, as a Fae, which that's my personal thing. You know what I mean? It's not like I can say that, and that's great.
What do you mean by that? Okay,
I can say that, and that's great, but it doesn't mean a whole lot.
I mean, when somebody says, "Well, I'm a Pleiadian," or I'm from Arcturus.
Well, what it means is that I'm getting information. See, it doesn't mean much at all, which is what I was just saying. That really only means something to me. It means when I came into this incarnation, I've said this before, it's like I was covered with sticky notes, little clues that I left myself.
Yeah.
And as I've gotten older...
That's very important, that.
Very important. But like I said, all that does is lead me along the path of information that I'm supposed to transmit. It's really just personal. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I will tell you,
There's several women I know in this line of businesses where they're all fairly remembering clearly that they're extraterrestrial beings from other worlds and they've decided to come here.
Yeah, exactly. But I've said this to you. I saw this on Basis 1 not too long ago. I said this. My mother and I came here together to do this thing.
Yeah.
You have to also listen to yourself, do you know?
Yeah.
Because we tell ourselves and everybody else the truth all the time. It's just that we don't listen to ourselves.
Yeah.
And meanings of words and things change very much on purpose. And so we don't really realize what it is that we've just said. But this brings me, and this could be just a tiny little sidebar. We can go anywhere we want to from this, because you're right about Ireland. Ireland is a big deal.
I mean, the portals there.
Yeah.
The energy spirals. And my friend at the radio station in this area called St. Patrick's Well went missing for 4 days.
Yeah, and St. Patrick means
independent
nothing.
research has just come to me and says it was a fae.
Maybe. They're here.
Or what they would call a fairy. Is that the same thing? Any connection there?
Well, let's talk about it. And let's think about it together here. First of all, I will tell you that today is March 31st. Yes, I've said that's important, and we'll talk about it later. Today is the 4th anniversary of the day that my house burned down. My house was on Temple Street.
Wow, I didn't realize it was only 4 years ago.
It's only been 4 years, Miles. Can you believe it? It's like universes have collided in those 4 years in my life, certainly in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2012. At midnight, of course it would be in my life, between March 31st and April 1st. Saturday to Sunday. Sunday was Palm Sunday that year. Okay, so and that's important too, but again, it could just be to me. Because the things that have happened in my life since my mother were killed have about 10 levels. And some of those levels are for me, and some of those levels are for me to say to you, or to, do you know?
Yeah.
So, interestingly enough, my younger brother died in 1993 as well, and he lived on Temple Street when he died. And it was in Colorado, not Maine. So what are the odds, Miles? I would love to know what the odds are there, okay? Because they've got to be astronomical.
Yeah. Well,
all
there's
right?
no such thing as a coincidence.
No, none. These are things that I'm bringing. They're just now, and I just said this to Miriam not too long ago because we were on the phone. I said, I'm getting the last bits. I'm getting the last pieces of why I came here, what the message really is, what I'm supposed to say. So my job now is just to start talking. And luckily enough, I'm not somebody who gives a shit whether how smart I look or whether anybody likes what I'm saying or any of that. I don't care. I don't care, Miles. I just have to say what I came here to say, right? Let's go back to Temple Street. The fire in my house, that burned my house down on Temple Street. Not too long, within a week or two after that happened, I was working, and I have been working regularly in my life with a couple of very deeply initiated clairvoyants, both American. I'm very connected to Rudolf Steiner, which you also know. Mm-hmm. And not too long after my house burned down, Steiner said, when the temple burns, the door to Ephesus opens.
Wow.
All I've known about that since then was that Ephesus was a mystery school centuries ago, not too far from Iran, really, I think. Wasn't paying a particularly close amount of attention to that, except that I've always kept it very near the surface. Ephesus, if you break it up, I love to do this, is E-P-H-E-P-H-E-S-U-S. That's how you spell it. E, the beginning E, no matter how you slice it, is either in eurythmy, which goes to Steiner's stuff, is I. It could also be Eli, the god, or God. This is from Landman. Erhard Landman is another piece of research that I'm bringing to you from the Fae, which is going to be the entire second episode is going to be on the Fae. Now that I've got the first episode in the can, I'm going to work on the second one. Both of those will be ready by the time I speak in August. P-H-E, that's the Fae. And you find that everywhere, all over the world. You either find F-E-Y as parts of words.
Yeah.
You can go to the easy ones like Morgan Le Fay, but that's easy. I mean, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. Or P-H-E, that's also everywhere.
Morgan Le Fay.
Yeah, you remember Morgan Le Fay. That is, that's the sister of Arthur in the legends.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And then the last part of that is us, or it could be aus, as my German husband pointed out. But that would be the God, Fae. It's Fae, us, and God. How do we make sense of that? Ephesus, I, Fae, or aus, or it could be I, Fae, and aus. I am of the Fae. I am from the Fae. Aus means from. I am from the Fae. Ephesus. Today is the 4th anniversary of my temple burning.
Yes.
That's why I'm bringing that particular piece. This is huge for me.
Yes, and it's a guide way. It's a guide.
Post-it notes I left all over myself. Okay. Fae, P-A-T, is everywhere. You look in town names. Okay. As I was reading this with my husband. There's a town called Urfey. You know how I love the word Ur. U-R-F-E-Y.
Yes.
Near Magdeburg, which is you could call that the city of Mary or the city of the woman. The origin of the Fae near the city of women in Magdeburg. That's East Germany. Germany's hugely important. They're always trying to destroy Germany, which we've talked about as well. Why is it always Germany? And I will also tell you, because you've got to get Yoshka to tell you, you've got to get him to do it. He's translated this man's work. His name is Erhard Landman, Landmann. He is an IT specialist. He's a complete obsessive compulsive IT guy in Germany who's been writing about all of this since the early 1980s. And of course, no one's taken him seriously in any way, shape, or form. And he's got it all. He's got it all because it's been given to him for whatever reason, okay? He talks about the Fae. He talks about where the Fae come from, which is why I can say someone has told me where the planet is. He talks about how they've existed through the eons. He talks about the fact that they're still here. He talks about the fact that, you know, in Ireland, I suppose the legend in Ireland is that the Fae steal babies or abduct people, children. Is it just children?
Well, this researcher had this experience where he was in an area where he'd found them, and it was like an energy zone. And because he was driving his car and the wife was there with him, he literally went. He just fade out.
Yeah, you fall asleep.
Yes.
You can't not fall asleep.
Yes, and he drove through that, and because he drove through it quickly, then he woke up again. Mm-hmm. It was an energy zone, and they knew where it was, and they could see it, and they found where the spirals were.
And I've also taken in the last year or two to saying the Fae have returned. I've said that to Maria Whitley. I don't even know how many times, because I know that maybe she has a clue. Maria would have a clue. Yeah. Maria, the Fae are back. The Fae are here. What does that mean,
now, is that
Maria?
some kind of dimensional thing, or is it an energetic vibration?
I think it probably is both of those things, and we have to suss that out. So these legends that exist in Ireland of the Fae and babies and things, I think that does go to the Fae as an alien race. The Fae are seeders of this planet, one of, if not, I don't know which seeder. I'm going to say probably one of the first, if not the first, seeders of this planet. Yeah. And the reason I say that is because of the swastikas all over the place in all the ancient cultures. If that's not a clue, Miles, I don't know what is, okay? Because it goes to the plow in the sky that spins.
Yeah.
I will tell you a couple of things. First of all, do you remember, have I said this to you on Spaces? Harold and I were on a very important show, October of 2014 in Leipzig. Have I talked to you about this?
I don't.
Okay, I'm going to talk to you about it now because it's important. We were coming back from Leipzig to Berlin, and he wanted me to go out to the farm to spend the night, which I'm really glad I didn't do now, because the woman that he lives with is, you know, questionable. So I didn't, because I'm never alone. And I said, no, Harold, I really want to just go back to the hotel room right by the airport and just hang out, be by myself, because I'm just never on my own. And so I did that. And I had one of these episodes where I just couldn't stay awake. I was going to go to sleep. And I remember these episodes from my teen years, you know, as growing up.
Yeah.
This feeling that, you know, you try to wake up and then you're like, no, I'm just going to go right back to sleep. It's a very overpowering thing. And I think lots of us have experience with that feeling. When I got back to London, I realized that I had a blister on both knees and a blister on both elbows and an indent right here over my heart of a index. You know what it is. It's an index finger bruise. A bruise right there over my heart. The hell did that come from? Right? So I called one of the two clairvoyants that I work with in the United States to help me with that one. And he said, they were just checking on you. I said, what do you mean they were just checking on me? They were just checking on you. They wanted to make sure you're okay. And he said, you know what? Someone put a hand straight through your chest to check your heart.
Right.
This, to me, this is the Fae. What does that mean? They are checking on me. Who the hell would...
An energetic being of some kind. Well, we're energetic beings, but we see ourselves as crystalline, as a physical thing. But what about them? I mean, how would you see one or experience one?
I don't know. I say you're looking at me. What does that mean? Do you know? I do. I can tell you. And the other clue that I have that this is actually the case for me is that I know that when I was 7, my mom took me and my brother to University of Oklahoma. He was 5 and I was 7, to participate in a study. And I don't know what she thought it was, but I do know I came out of that study with my smallpox vaccine. And so what I remember now is that she...
Did you not have it beforehand?
Smallpox vaccine, I still have it.
Yeah, everybody has one.
Yeah, but it was a study. No, it was I was 7. It was a study, and in exchange for participating in the study, we were going to get free vaccines. This is now, remember, I'm remembering this, and I was 7 at the time, okay? And I have checked on that incident as well, and I was told that the U.S. military was taking my DNA and trying to splice it, and they were unsuccessful. Do I have a memory of that? No. Actually, you know what I have? I have no memory of that year. It's gone.
Before they were trying to splice your DNA, I mean, they
With
just
what?
need some hair or what? I mean,
I don't know, but I have no memory of that year. It's gone.
Yeah.
It's not there. All right? I will tell you that you could put all this together. We'll put all this together someday. I don't even know that in the end it matters. But I will tell you that my dad grew up near Dulce. My brother was born just outside Roswell. Okay? That path, this little path, my whole existence was, until I was 18 or so, sort of was in this area. I grew up in Albuquerque. My God, it's hollow. The Sandia Mountains are hollow. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, we got to break.
All right.
Hello?
Coming! Oh. All right, let's hope that works. Maybe this is the thing that you were waiting for. That'd be awfully fast, though.
You can do that later.
You better check my... I just put my microphone back on, so you better check it.
I just thought it was all Yosko.
I know, I was going to kill him.
I was going to kill him.
What the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
All right, so anyway, we continue to talk about the Fae, but all I can tell you really, other than my own personal experience, which I'm telling you what I know. I'm telling you the clues that I have. I'm telling you that I have been important in some way, to some aspect of any of this, and I don't yet know exactly what it is, except that I think that there's a time and a place that's ripe, and that I am supposed to impart information. That's my job. I said on basis 1, my mother and I came here almost like the code and the decoder ring in the same.
You see, I know another lady who's got a mother who had a similar situation where her mother...
It does.
You may have met her. She's a woman called Jane, and her mother left her this book full of so much information about the illuminated ones and the higher knowledge, and she's writing her book, but she's trying to get it together. And
yeah.
So it's a similar...
It has happened. Parks talks about his mother all the time. Who's that guy? There's this guy, he looks rather Asian, and he's sort of associated with Aquino. Do you know who I mean?
Aquino?
Yeah, do you know who I mean?
No.
He's been to Australia, and he's a younger fellow, and his mother's dead now. And he talks about...
Aquino?
Yeah, Aquino. He's associated with Aquino. I'm not... I don't...
This is one of Christine Hart's interviews.
I don't have any satanic people roaming my head, thank you, God. But what I do have is...
Are you talking about one of the super soldiers? And the Super Soldier Summit. There's a number of individuals there.
He might be. I don't know.
Very tall.
He's shaky. He's got long hair, yeah, but he looks rather... I almost couldn't decide whether he was a man or a woman. I couldn't decide whether he was Chinese or Asian.
Yeah,
do you know who I mean? He's a dicey guy. He's a dicey guy, supposedly, but he does talk about his mother somehow. And isn't that Fae? Isn't that pure Fae? This mother thing is a big gesture of the Fae. So I think that when you come up against somebody like myself or like this other woman that you're talking about, you may be talking about a real Fae gesture because it's the maternal. It's Landman talks about that. He talks about this history, which it's rather unsavory, really, this history he talks about of people being abducted and then forced to have sex and things like that, which to me, it's a bit salacious for me.
Well, I got the impression that the abduction was more of an energetic one, but as I say, my colleague was taken for 4 days. He was missing. But then when he appeared, he reappeared in broad daylight behind a policeman in a little field where there are known to be fairies would be dancing.
Yeah. Well,
this
what Landman says is that it really is about either abducting even fetuses for, I would suppose, for raising elsewhere or gene work or for something, right? And also for producing,
offspring,
offspring here, hybrids here.
Energetic hybrids.
This is a story this is another story that everybody is really familiar with, which is the story of the she, which we talked about on Bases
now,
Part 3.
what's the difference there? Explain.
What is the difference? Do you see, that's the legend of the she, though, is that there was a race that seeded this planet that married the local women, she, and that most of us still are at least part of that line, that because it's a seed. It's a, one of the original seed lines.
We interviewed Eva Zemanova in Prague, and she is referring to being a seed. Anna Hess says something the same.
We're so close. And we all kind of look alike, too, don't we?
Yeah.
In a way. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
There's a real sort of physical gesture amongst us, which probably in the end will be important. But I think that this memory is coming. This memory is coming through us. It's coming
the cycles.
Up.
Something Valery Yuvarov mentioned, as you mentioned, you've been with him.
We were on the same.
Was that cycles are coming? We're coming to an end of a series of cycles.
Yeah.
Where things are going to start happening.
Yeah. Talking to Miriam a couple of weeks ago, she actually asked me. She said, "Are you in pain?" I said, "No, I'm not in pain at all." She said, "Because your energy is being changed completely, utterly right now, 100%. You're undergoing an absolute 100% change in energy, which goes along with the things that I've come across, and the things that I'm putting together, and the things that I'm trying to present and make sure get out there so that everybody can run with them. That's what it's all about. It's not about. Some of this is primary. Some of this is my own story." So I guess you would call that prime research. Most of it's just putting everything together and making sure it gets out there so everybody has it and everybody can run with it. Now let's talk about Ireland a little bit.
Well, let's talk about that in the next part.
Miles, thank you. Before I forget, I'm going to say this to you. Erhard Landman, this fellow that we're talking about, who knows so much about so much, is he's on death's door. He's not going to be with us much longer. He's got prostate cancer or some kind of cancer that's killing him, okay? And one of the things that he lectures on widely that you need to understand both German and have a relationship with Old High German to get is that he knows what all the freaking glyphs say. The Mayan glyphs, every glyph that you can think of. Did you already hear this?
No, I didn't
just
know
now?
this. This is whole news. So this gentleman's name is?
Erhard Landman, Landmann. If you speak German, you can listen to his lectures in German. He's not a great lecturer. He's kind of annoying because he's an IT guy and he's not, But my husband...
He goes on in a very boring voice and talks a bit like this, and everybody's asleep after the first word.
Because Joschka's got a relationship to Old High German.
Yeah.
Because he's old enough. He's old enough, to have that. He can explain all of that to you. And I've said this to him several times. You've got to get on Miles, or at least get with Miles, and show him this.
Yes, let's do that.
Yeah? Because that's huge. That's absolutely huge.
Well, this is really interesting. It's all part of the... Yeah.
It's all part of it. It's all part of it. These legends of the White Ladies, because he just, said that. These legends of the White Ladies that exist in most countries. And then when the Catholic Church took over, you had visions of Mary.
Yes.
These are the Fae, according to Landman. These are the Fae. And it's a female. It's always a female, obviously. June
Why obviously?
4th. Well, because, I guess why obviously. Obviously, White Lady, obviously Mary. These are all women. Part of one of the things that I work on, and if I ever get enough of this out, I'll go back to that particular project, is this idea that Mary, the symbol of Mary, whether it's outward or inward, is a portal. to the Divine Feminine, to Sophia, all of that.
This is
Mary.
the thing about Ireland. The Divine Feminine's been destroyed by St. Patrick, the church.
Well, let's talk about that, because, you may have realized St. Patrick's Day was not a great day for me. I put some
he's
stuff.
not a saint, and he was a butcher.
Yeah, I put some stuff on Facebook about it that particular day that was personal, and as commemorating an event. And I also, underneath that, put what I consider to be the most powerful chant or prayer or incantation that I know of, and it was taken over by the Catholic Church. It's not Catholic, and it has nothing to do with St. Patrick.
Well, so much.
It's the cry of the deer, the Fade Fiada. Fade, is that how you say it? Fade Fiada?
Don't know.
It's called the deer's cry. At Tara today, in this fateful hour, I call on heaven with its power, heaven being whatever. But that was transferred, that was reorganized in a Catholic, to become a Catholic
like
thing.
many things were in the so-called
and it
Church
doesn't
of Rome.
have anything to do with St. Patrick. It goes all the way back. You're Irish, Tara goes far, far, far,
this
far
is where
back.
I'm really interested in the ancient.
Indeed. We
the
talk
ancient
about
high civilization which
yes.
re-civilized Europe,
Yeah.
or this area, and is connected with those who came out of the underground chambers.
Yeah.
With what we call Egypt now.
Well, you and I talked about the Battle of the Boyne when Kali appeared on the side of the Empire State Building. That was news to me in a way.
Yeah.
And you had me read
Ireland, Land of the Pharaohs.
Yes, Ireland,
and you
Land
come
of
up
the
with
Pharaohs.
another battle earlier.
There's another battle. Somebody just brought this to me. See, this is what I'm saying. It's coming to me now. Someone just brought to me.
These aren't battles, they're rituals.
Moitura. It was called the battle. There were two of them, actually. Yes, rituals of Moitura. And I've been trying to suss that out a lot in the last few days. There's a fellow, a bard called Robin Williamson, who did this, what would you call it? It was told the tale, I guess you would say, of the Battle of Moitura at the Megalithomania, they call it.
Oh, yes.
In 2009.
Ah.
He told the story. It takes about an hour.
Should get a DVD on that. Huh?
Yeah, you can get it on YouTube or whatever, because I've been watching it, because for me, the only history that matters is oral history.
Conferences.
Yeah. Anyway, it took.
Provided is that the one in Glastonbury?
I don't know. I guess I've
never
been.
Megalithomania.
Yeah, I've never been.
Yeah.
But look it up. Robin Williamson is his name, and I listened to it, and what I heard was an original story. I heard a landing story. I can't prove that, obviously.
What do you mean by a landing?
I mean, I heard there were two battles. I don't know how to separate them out yet. There were the Tuath de Danaan. I've just learned how to say that.
Yeah, I'm still trying to learn how to say it. The Tuath de Danaan.
Tuath de Danaan.
The de Danaan, yeah.
The Firbolg were already there when the Tuath arrived. And then there was another, I can't remember the name of them, but he says it, that either came from under the sea or across the sea. But they came on the water.
Hyborians, yeah.
Yeah. And they came with one eye, the saga says they had one eye, one arm, and one leg. And then what he said was, but the one eye was to covet, the one arm was to grasp, and the one leg was to trample. And I thought, there it is. There it is. There's the landing of the, yeah? Now, there's also, according to Landman, and I think he's probably correct, two kinds of fae. And he does say that translated itself in human tale to be the good fairies and the bad fairies.
Yeah.
There are two kinds of fae. Now, if you go back to Sylvia Ivanova's brilliant work, this is that one long campaign, is it not? In my mind, this is the one long campaign. The quote-unquote bad fairies chasing the quote-unquote good fairies for millennia. And really, she called them the survivors of that culture. They moved across the globe, built, leaving remnants of their culture everywhere, which is why we go across the globe and go, who the hell built that? How is that possible?
Yeah.
That's not possible with a stone axe.
Well, there's an ancient land here. There's an ancient.
the Fae, in my opinion, I feel like I'm looking at the original seeders of this planet.
Yeah.
Can I prove it?
No. Well, this is the key. There's an ancient... We have an ancient civilization. This is what John Irwin's team obtained. They obtained knowledge from a high-order ancient civilization which suffered catastrophic destruction, of which the remnants survived on the Western Isles of...
Yeah, and the nasty ones chased the good ones and tried to eliminate them and take...
Well, whoever caused the destruction...
You know, let's talk about the destruction, because I did just listen to an Andrew Power interview yesterday, and I'm sad to say he's passed away, right?
Yes, he passed away about 2 years ago.
Because I could really use a discussion with that guy.
He was a gentle and extremely wise man who'd reached Illuminati status, truly illuminated in knowledge and spirituality.
Yeah. But I'd like to ask him about
He lived in Bangor in Northern Ireland.
Yeah. I'd like to ask him about this battle, the Battle of the Moytura, because I think that's where some more of our answers lie. Maybe some of the original answers. But please bear in mind that really the only history you can trust is the oral history. Written history is completely... You just don't know.
Yeah.
Mostly it's completely manipulated by the parasites. What he described coming out in this bardic tale, coming either across the water or from under the water. He said it could have been either one.
We have a predator here.
It was predatory.
Yeah.
He was describing the predator, and I thought this is such an important story. I will be living with this story for a while and trying to find people who understand this story. Anyway, I listened to Andrew, and his Battle of the Boyne is brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. Certainly, that's exactly what we were looking at in Collie on the side of the Empire State Building, as you and I sort of figured out together. The one thing, though, that I wonder about is he said, and you'll know about this Noah's Ark thing. First of all, we can talk about this cataclysm. I have a memory of water. A cataclysmic memory of water. Well, Tessarian says it was a planet, that hit us. I don't remember anyway. Regardless, I don't want to go to Tessarian right now, so maybe. There is that thing about the Great Attractor, but I thought that was on the other side of the sun.
This is
back that way.
Whatever.
Perhaps, and it's another reason to this is all spherical astronomy, isn't it? Which is under massive attack because no one wants us looking. Do you see? This is the flat Earth conspiracy, in my opinion. But back to this idea of a catastrophe. I absolutely do have a memory of a water catastrophe. There is no question about it. And but when I was listening to Power, I think of the Fae. There's always this Noah's Ark thing, bringing everything with them. The Landman says the Fae brought everything here. Okay, well maybe.
Well, they could have arrived from Venus.
I know where they came from. They came from
arrival.
Fecta. And by the way, don't look up Fecta on the computer. It must mean something filthy in Eastern European because you get porn sites when you type in PHECDA. Right. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Seems like an invitation
Save
to
yourself.
some, but I shouldn't say that.
Save yourself. Okay, don't do it. Look up the planets in Ursa Major because technically people don't really realize that the Big Dipper is not part of Ursa Major. It's in front of Ursa Major. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Anyway, look up the planets. Anyway, but Power said that 2x2 thing is actually the DNA.
Yeah.
It could be both of those things. As we know, these things happen on many, many levels. It could be both of those things. The DNA was the 2x2 story, or it could be that we were seeded. It depends on what you think the hologram actually is. Well,
Erwin's saying we're all seeded here. We've all been brought here. Mm-hmm. But by who and why? And
I'm going to say it was the Fae. And I'm going to say that because I identify so strongly as Fae, I'm absolutely convinced that that's the case. And I'm not going to get into this with you, but you're going to know what I'm talking about. There are people who will never be on the same stage with me. Do you see what I'm saying? It will just never happen. Once it appears that I'm going to be there, they will bail every time. And that's all I'm going to say. Because they are of a different... Draco's not too far from there. Let me put it that way. You can see when you look at this, that right over here is Draco. There are people who may have been assigned to be with me who self-identify as Draco. for a period of time to see what I was up to see if they could mess it up or if they needed to mess it up. Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah. And then either gave up or whatever, were pulled or went away in some way. These things have happened to me as I've gone through, particularly the last 5 or 6 years, trying to get this message out. So, yeah.
So where are you headed with this then?
I don't know where I'm headed with this. I mean, I'm putting together a presentation that encompasses the false history and the fae together. That's called The Great Remembering. And we will be seeing that in Australia, and then we will be seeing that at the conference, your conference, in August. BasisCon
2016.
Yeah. I don't know exactly where I'm headed. I do know that we're coming very, very close to, you say disclosure in your way, I say disclosure in my way. To me, this is disclosure, but it doesn't mean the government...
We have to do the disclosure. The government's not going to tell us.
The government's not going to do it.
The government's too heavily involved.
And the issue is this.
Things they don't want to... They need to tell people about it before they get lynched.
They do. The issue is this. It will come down to people like you and me standing up and saying what we know. And that is why people like Fomenko, with his mathematical proof, are bloody important. Are they not? Because I can say to you, see, here is the proof, that the kind of proof that you find meaningful, that I find meaningful because it's astronomy. Here it is. No one can refute this. Not really, because it's mathematically simple and mathematically sound. Statistically, it's it's what we would call irrefutable statistically. So it's really important. And what's even more important, Miles, is that we're finding these things out now because we have access to computing. Do you know?
Yeah.
He does what he does by using, lots and lots of...
Well, we're able to assemble an awful lot of information quicker rather than traveling to libraries and sifting through books and read them.
Right. But they can close those gaps on us.
They can close those gaps, but this is also a false joy, because so much, unless it's on the internet, if it's not on the internet, people think it doesn't exist.
It used to be if it wasn't on TV, they didn't think it existed, right?
Well, this is you do have to go to those libraries.
Yeah. This is what I'm saying. I'm trying as hard as I can to get this out to as many people as I can get it out to, because the other side is racing as fast as they can to close the gap so that we never can figure out how screwed we have been.
I mean, we're essentially putting this out using Google. And Google are only allowing this to happen because they must have an interest in this. Why?
They have an interest in this. I know that I'm being watched all the time by people who have an interest in this. I just gave you a couple of examples. I know that I have not yet, other than when I'm in the United States, when I was first putting the book together, and then there was sort of these standard stock feeble attempts to scare me kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? I have not yet been pulled up short on anything that I've said, but to anyone, I've told David Icke off, and he's never said a word back to me.
Oh my God!
You can't do that with Icke.
Yeah,
but
has he had a hissy fit? Doesn't like you?
No, he's just never come after me, and I've told him off more than once about
Now, how did you tell him off? Did you go and point your finger at him, and did you wag your finger at him?
No, like at the very end of the TPV thing. And I have to say, before we get into Icke, I like Icke. I think Icke is charming and interesting and smart and all. Whoever is inside that body, let me put it that way, because who knows? Yeah. Ike's a good guy in his way, but Icke is a snake oil salesman also in his way. Yeah. And so I was working
just now you mentioned the TPV. I mean, we've got you've made some. This is an opportunity to mention those wonderful.
Please show these. I've given these documentaries to Miles because they deserve an airing, and he has them, and they're all his to put up for the Basis Project. You're calling them Basis interviews, aren't you?
Yes.
They were interviews that I conducted with a cameraman on behalf of my own show, really, for The People's Voice. February 28th, March 1st, something like that. It was a panel they were conducted when I was speaking on a panel in Saarbrücken, Germany, with Harold, with who's the guy from Hawaii?
Nassim Haramein.
Yeah. another person who has an interest in keeping astronomy the way it is. Klaus Dona. You have an interview with Klaus Dona. You have an interview with Valery Uvarov. Wolfgang, I can't remember his last name, but he's written several books about the Unterberg, which is that magical mountain that Hitler was so interested in Germany. You have him with with Yoshka translating. Yeah. And Tellinger, Michael Tellinger's on there, although I'm completely off Tellinger now. I think Tellinger, I guess I can say that now. Just look into Michael's stuff and see. One of the things that I find to be really, really important right now is that if we are bringing other people's research to the fore, we need to say that. Okay?
Yes.
We need to say that. And I'm sick and tired of watching people take other people's hard work and then run with it and never say where they got it, never credit anyone with anything. They just find it and they're good spokesmen, they're charming, they're good on TV, whatever, and they run with it. It's not okay, man.
They actually get it wrong.
They get it wrong a lot of the time. He trots out Zachariah Sitchin's stuff, which I think is absolute crap. I absolutely do not I do not buy into Sitchin's stuff.
I agree.
No way. And he's still out there doing it.
Like a lot of this stuff, it's...
He's calling his stuff now the alternate history. It is not the alternate history. It's just another load of garbage, please. Yeah. In my opinion. Now I'm going to get Tellinger on my case, but I don't really care. Because we have the same publisher in Germany, so maybe it'll be my publisher who gets on my case. Anyway, so Klaus Dona, you have an interview
do you think this is intentional, briefly, or just naive, or...
I think people are out to make money. And I think we have to be very careful. And sometimes I think, who's behind what? I don't know.
I mean, this is why John Irwin will not... He's got a secret to tell. He's got a story to tell.
I know he does.
And he will not tell it unless it's done once properly.
I know.
Fully credited.
I know. Do you know what? I told you what he told me. When I was working for TPV, I really wanted to interview him. And we were doing telephone and we were doing Skype and stuff like that. And he said, all right, I'll tell you what I have to say, but you're going to end up with a bullet through your head.
That was John Irwin?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, okay, maybe.
So
what am I supposed to say to that?
Are you going to say you dodged the bullet now?
I guess, because he just went away at that point. Yeah. He's like, if I tell you what I have to say, you're going to end up with a bullet through your head. And then I had lost track of John forever. I have his new book because he's just now started reissuing that book. Yeah,
he's actually printed it out. He's taken total control of it, and he's got it stacked in the living room, the loft,
you have to.
The garage.
You have to take total control of your art, your work, all that stuff. I did.
All of the previous editions of that book of his, he was ripped off.
Really? Yeah. See, that's what happens, though. And so but you do. And I can't wait. There's an interview with me right after I was right out of the shower, so it's hysterical because there I sit, like barely. But there's an interview with Harold where he's holding black goo supposedly.
Wow.
You got to get those interviews up, man.
Jesus wept.
Huh?
Yeah, I need to right, this is it. I need to focus.
You got to get them up. Harold has the black goo in his possession, ostensibly, in that interview. And that was when we actually decided to write the Dangerous Imagination. It was that weekend.
Well, I just need to lock myself away.
You do. I keep thinking that I'm going to see those any day.
I've actually got them on the computer.
Put them up raw, man. You don't have to edit them. Just put them up raw. Yeah. It's really simple. It's just it's one camera on the person we're interviewing. Some people in the background asking questions. We let him go. Klaus Dona has his crystal skull with him. Sam Osmanagic as well. The Bosnian pyramids.
I'm not too sure if we got all of that in there. But
they should be.
Yeah.
Well, they should be anyway. If they're not, it's because somebody took them off before they gave me back the hard drive. I've never been able to get those things aired. That's why I'm glad that you have them.
Jesus, okay.
Okay.
Well, let's focus on that.
Yeah. Anyway, but it wasn't just that. It was something else. Anyway, ask me a question. Maybe it'll come back.
Okay, we've dealt with the Fae, different versions of the Fae.
Yeah, well.
Good and bad fairies.
Yeah, whether or
The
not
Battle of
these
the
are
Boyne,
actually
the other
whether or
earlier
not,
battle.
Yeah, the earlier battle.
Your chats with you're listening to Andrew Power, which is so rare to get that. I wanted to get him interviewed. He wouldn't do it.
I need to talk to the guy, so it's really Swagger, James Swagger. I'm hoping can shed some light on that battle. Very few people even know about that battle, the Battle of Moytura.
I've never heard of it.
No one, Maria doesn't know about it, so that tells you something.
Yeah.
No one knows about it, so I've sent a note to Swagger.
Okay, what is that battle?
It was
that is to say the ritual.
yeah, it was a ritual battle, I suppose.
What date?
Because this is the first time that it's mentioned the four things that the Tuath de Danaan always have: a wand. This is the Fae as well. This goes to the Fae. What is it they always have? It's a wand. There are four things. I'll have to get back to you on that one. But there are four things that the Tuath de Danaan had that the Fae always have as well. One of them is a wand. And they did have these four things in these battles. There was a king in the battle who had his arm cut off, and it was replaced with a silver arm. Oh shit. I'm sorry.
Are we?
I'm just thinking.
Are we talking about the hand of Ulster, the red hand of Ulster? There's a legend
I don't
about
think so.
Well,
This king had his arm cut off. It was replaced with a silver arm by a druid, the head druid of the Fir Bolg, I think, and then a son, one of his sons or his grandsons, who was a healer, covered in his skin. Now I just had a transhumanism flash.
Yeah.
Did you?
This sounds like a cyborg. This is how these creatures live.
This is that story.
Yeah.
Robin Williamson, it's 1 hour, 2009 Megalithomania, does the whole tale of a piece. Okay, so I just got a flash on transhumanism with that one. And there were people that came out of or across the sea, the Fir Bolg, who were already there.
But this is why Atlantis was destroyed, because they did all that stuff and they caused so much mayhem.
This story's huge. We need to find out.
A virus was created to destroy them, and they were just completely wiped out.
Yeah, I'm finding out as much as I can about this story as fast as I can, and also the Battle of the Boyne. The Boyne River was named after a goddess. Did you?
Could be. But the symbolism of the Boyne is that it symbolizes the Milky Way.
Yeah, and it also, if you lay the Nile right on top of it,
yes,
it's the same river.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the connection with ancient Ireland. It also symbolizes those who came across the Milky Way, those who came across the oceans. We're talking ETs here, obviously.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. One of whom had his arm cut off and got it replaced by something metal that was then covered by skin. That's
usually symbolic of some kind of part of
the Battle of Moytura, Moytura, or Turra.
And what era are we talking about here?
Way, way, way before. I mean, this is the Tuath de Danaan. Those stories are those not just ancient stories?
Yeah.
This is the beginning story, probably. And someone saw a Bases interview and made contact with me and said, I've got to tell you something. I got to tell you about this other battle. So very few people know about it, I guess.
Well, this is something we talk about it now.
Yeah. So hopefully Swagger will. I sent him an email. That's our best.
Okay, the Fae.
Yeah, Fae seed race. The Fae is the seed race, as far as I can make out, and they left us clues everywhere, up to and including many words in our language. Anything that has a PHE in it, phenomenon, phenomenon, or an FEY, or there are other words, millions of other words. Maybe I can send you a list. I'll go home and open up my article. The article, The Women of Fae, which was translated from the German, that was written by Erhard Landmann, is actually on my magazine. It's on Vortex magazine. Vortex Courage. God, what is it now? www.vortexcourage.me. It's on my magazine.
Why is this in the German tradition?
Isn't that interesting?
Not in...
Why is it always the German? This is a question I continually ask. Why is it always the German? Why is it Old High German is the key to decoding every glyph, the Mayan glyphs, and all of these things around the planet?
Now, my father learned High German, and his brother and the family way back in the 30s. In fact, so what is High German? Is it just like
it's an Ur language. It is the Ur language.
No, what's that?
The original.
We're talking about UR?
Mm-hmm. I use that word all the time. The Ur.
2 dots over the U?
No, I don't think so. I think it's just UR. But Ur is prototype. Ur means the original. Ur.
Wow.
It's an Ur language, just like anything that's Ur, I think, comes out of the morphogenic field. It's the original. It's the prototype. Perhaps everything that's Ur lives in the morphogenic field. Okay, we don't.
So I mean, it's not German. German is. I mean, if you spoke, no.
It's so many languages are German. Even There's even an argument that Japanese is a subset of German. Again, this comes from Lenman. Lenman's really important, and I'm very lucky. Did I just screw up my? I'm very, very lucky, Miles, because so much is coming out of Russia now, thankfully, and so much is in German. And I live with someone who is obsessed with researching all this stuff and translates it all for me. So this is my channel to getting the information and getting the information out in English. The Germans are doing very, very good work in research, very, very good work in esoteric.
Well, they were doing it.
Stuff.
That's what really the Nazis were about.
The Nazis
this evil
did a
thing.
lot. We don't know this.
They discovered this ancient technology. They built these counter-rotating field devices, the Bell and stuff, and that's what led to the war.
Yeah. So, but it's all been trapped in we are living in this English-speaking bubble. I will probably never live in the United States again because I can't. The minute I touch down there, I know I'm cut off. I can feel it.
Yeah.
I can absolutely feel I'm not getting, the communication that's going on in the rest of the world. It's information lockdown. Absolutely an electromagnetic concentration camp.
That's a heck of a thing to say.
It is, but I think it's true. I think it's absolutely true. It's still been really difficult for me to get anything said. I have a couple of radio shows 8 radio shows since the original Basis show when we started bringing out with me and Harold. They latched on to what we were doing, and so I've been able to get some things out in that way. But, Americans, God bless them, they don't know anything. And they're not allowed to know anything.
Yeah.
And neither are the Australians, for that matter.
Which is a tragedy from my point of view, because I went to America to find out a lot about this stuff. You didn't know you could get it here. It's sort of...
Yeah. So there's not, at the moment, tons more to say about the Fae. There will be. I've got to, I know an Irishman or two now. I've been asking you to get us to Ireland. Get us to Ireland, Anne Maria. Get us to Ireland, please, because we got to see.
Maria's been to some very interesting underground things.
Yeah, I've got to get there. I thought it was to see the Boyne, but it's not just to see the Boyne. It's also, by the way, this battle happened near Sligo.
Sligo's the place.
Yeah,
that's where the burial of Scotia is, somewhere up there.
Scotia came up yesterday with this listening to. Again, a female, yeah.
And Michael Poindor, Poyndor, did a wonderful, very lavishly photographed book about the dynamics of the mountains in Donegal, the way they were changed, and the way the energy levels were. And there's the portal in Lough Derg to visit.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you think human beings actually need stargates? I mean, that's just coming up in my brain now.
Well, this is it.
Because I don't.
That's what it's for.
I think we are stargates, and I think it's one of the biggest...
What we actually are, we're meant to have 18 senses or whatever it is. I think Swan mentioned that, but a lot of it's been shut down.
Mm-hmm. This woman...
Portals await. And there's the copy that was made, which is to distract people. And then there's the identical one at the Vatican, which is active, which means the Vatican are actively using and gating...
Absolutely. And you know what? This brings me to... Yeah, this is this other book that I've been working on for like 4 years about the Pietà. The Pietà is a gate.
Yeah.
It is. Don't ask me how I know that. I just know it.
Where's
it is
that?
a gate.
What is it?
The Pietà is Mary holding Jesus. It's a carving. It's Michelangelo, was it? Or was it Da Vinci? I think it was Michelangelo. The Pietà is a gate of some sort. It's in the Vatican now. Mary, any vision of Mary, as I'm saying, is a door to the Divine Feminine, to Sophia. And the Vatican has one of the keys to disproving this idiotic flat earth theory, in the sense that every Christmas does not the Pope look out, give his message and look out over St. Peter's Square and watch Orion rise above the horizon? That's one of the things that he does. That's one of the rituals, is waiting for Orion to rise above the horizon out there. Rise above the horizon. Not, do you know?
God. No, I didn't.
Yeah. So...
Well, Cara, is there anything you want to...
That's it. No, not really. I want to, like I said, I want to encourage people to look into the New Earth series. It's on YouTube. There are millions of them, and they're brilliant. Start with one and work your way through. I do have my episode out. I want people to get a hold of that and engage with the workbook.
And what's that called?
It's called False History, The Great Remembering, because and I have a feeling I'm going to be lecturing about this in one form or another for a while. It's going to grow.
Yeah.
It's going to grow a lot. And try to get a hold of Flamenco's work if you can. Buy the books, because they'll probably start disappearing.
Yeah.
Now that they're, and I know it's 2,000 pages worth of stuff, but I've tried to make that easy. I've tried to make that easy and understandable, and you can go back in and look at it if you want to.
Yeah.
Most of, according to him,
on what
most
site?
of...
Where would they carry?
He has a site of his own, Anatoly Fomenko. Just type it in, you'll get his site. He suggests that Samaria never existed. He suggests that, what was it? China, most of Chinese history is borrowed. That the Great Wall is a recent construction. All kinds of things.
Wow.
I know, it's huge. So
well, it must be a recent construction, that was, otherwise those sort of walls end up falling apart quite easily.
Well, and there's that, and there's also, I can't remember.
And what do you mean by recent?
200-300 years.
Oh, what is this meant to be, like a millennia ago or something? 1,000 years?
Yeah, something like that. The original Chinese dynasty. Yeah, no, it's very recent. And be aware that that part of what's happening. We talk about this a lot as well. Iraq being absolutely leveled, and Syria, Palmyra, and all that now. All of those things that are going on are meant to erase the clues.
Yeah.
So it's a race now. It's a race. Get in the race.
Who would you say is doing that? Who's responsible?
Well, the Jesuits are the arm of that. I'm going to say the bad fairies now. I'm going to say...
Why the bad fairies doing it?
The bad fairies are doing it. Well, I'm going to say it's... there are more than one... I think we know that there are more than one alien race on the planet right now vying for... The last thing that they want, I believe, is to meet the Fae and look them in the eye. Yeah. The Fae have always been here to some extent. The Fae are back. The Fae are arriving. The Fae are also connected with this planet in the intradimensional way. We were saying, which way is it? Yes. Are they coming from out there? Are they coming from up here?
Yes.
I think that the Fae are married to this planet in a way that we don't understand.
Yeah.
And they are also in there. And this was the original part of the Fae that I connected with, was the part that we're actually sort of faded past consciousness in a way, and now come back in an intradimensional way. So they are interdimensional and they are intradimensional. Yeah. And I think that will be disclosure. That will be disclosure. But I don't know how it's going to happen.
Okay, well, thank you, Cara.
Thank you, Miles. Thanks for talking to me about this.
Thanks for now. And a wonderful jacket full of colour.
Right, man.
Yeah, really, really nice.
Thank you. I just wanted a bit of colour, which reminds me, actually, I can say this to you. All of this goes back to chemtrailing. It's all why they're trying to hide the skies. It's all why they're trying to dumb us down. It's all why they're trying to separate us from biophotonic, sustenance. It is all of those things. And Schellberger said that, what was it Schellberger said? Yes, this is really important in some way. Victor Schellberger, if you know his work, he said that there must be an atmosphere in order for us to see anything. So how you take pictures out in space is really beyond me, because there's either...
That's interesting. Why would he say that?
Well, I can't remember the writing that he was doing at the time, but there must be an atmosphere in order for us to see anything. I was just thinking when I was looking at my color here, I'm living in London, which is all black and white and gray. Yeah, it's all they ever wear there. Yeah. Rudolf Steiner said it won't be too long before the only thing that we can see is black and white. Now, if that's the case, is it because they're changing the plasma all around us? If we need a certain, a certain atmosphere in order to see color, because he was very sort of, he was prescient as well. He, he said there was going to come a day when the Earth was surrounded by a web. He said that in 1900.
Yeah,
it is.
It's the World Wide Web.
World Wide Web.
Yeah.
And
I think it'll be something else. I think
maybe it may be something else indeed.
Chemtrails,
but
the web of the chemtrails.
It may be, but if they're changing the plasma and the environment, they're changing the atmosphere enough within the context of making it a different kind of plasma that we cannot see. We cannot see. We need the atmosphere to see. So of course they would changing the atmosphere with the plasma so that we can or cannot see. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think I need different. There must be a different meaning in there somewhere.
I think it literally. Okay, there's probably several, but literally right now, to me, it means changing what we can or cannot see.
We can see the sun, but does that mean there's an atmosphere between the sun? I mean, I think there must be some other message there. But anyway, that's it.
Yeah, that's it for now.
That's it for now.
That's it for now. Okay, thanks, Miles.
Good to see you.
Bye. Anyway, plasma.